What's Gucci everyone, it's AJ here again, and welcome to another Swift tutorial. So right now, I have, as we see here, I have some code I already wrote that you guys can see. I'll get rid of this comment, and what we're going to do is talk about some interesting operators in Swift. So one operator we have right here is, I'm taking a integer here, and it's an unsigned integer of 8 bytes, and I'm taking the max of that. So what unsigned means is that the number cannot be signed. And so what is a signed number? A signed number is negative. That means you're giving it a sign. You know, numbers automatically usually do have a plus sign. They're positive. But if it's signed, it's usually negative. So the U means unsigned, and then it says int of 8 bytes. What 8 bytes means, if you don't know about bits and bytes, I highly value looking what they are. It means that, hey, I can only store this number in 8 bytes, in 8 bits. And so the maximum number for 8 bits, as you can see here on the left, is 255. And now, so that is the maximum number this variable can store here. But then what I'm doing on line 7 right here is I am saying will overflow plus 1. And then I'm going to print out will overflow. And when I do that, I get an error because I overflowed the number. I went to 256, and my variable doesn't have the memory or the byte, more than one byte to store 256. It can only store 0 to 255. So what I'm going to do is something in Swift called the overflow operator. And what the overflow operator does is it compensates for this overflow. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to simply put you do this by doing the ampersand right before the symbol. And so I do the ampersand plus 1, and now instead of going from 255 to 256 and getting an error, which I don't now, I get 0 now, I go back down to 0. So what it's going to do, it's going to wrap around for me, which is pretty cool. So it goes from 255 back to the minimum number I can have, all zeros of 0, and then so it prints out 0, so that's pretty cool. And so now let me show you guys, this can be also applied to the minimum variable right now. So let's say I give it uint min, which is 0, and then I do minus 1. If I do minus here, I get an error again because I'm going from 0, I'm trying to go to -1, which I won't talk about how that's represented in binary, but it's actually represented in binary with all ones, and the last bit being a negative bit. But it's better, I have another video on that, and I highly advise you to look at that one. But this does the same thing, except now instead of wrapping around the positive way, it's going to wrap around the negative way. So I'm going to set this variable to be the minimum of unsigned integers of 1 byte, and which is 0, and then I'm going to minus it by 1, and then I'm going to get 255. So it's going to wrap around from negative to positive, from least to greatest, and give me 255. So that's pretty cool. And you can also do this with the multiply operator. So let's make this max, and let's see what happens. So when I make it max, well, it doesn't make sense to do that, really. So when I make it max here, let's see, does that make sense at all? When I make it 255 max, and then I do will overflow times 2, what happens is I get 255 plus 255, but the extra 1 gets spent on going from 255 to 0, so then I only have 254 to go up again. And if I do this times 3, then it will again still wrap around. So it'll keep on wrapping around, but it needs that extra 1 to go from 255 to 0. So that may be kind of confusing you if you see the same thing. And you can do the same thing for division. Hopefully we don't get confused here. Oh, and the reason is because I still need the ampersand. I'm just getting my division. And division is, well, causing me problems, but let's do here. Let me do 255, and let me do 256 here. Let's see, what is it going to give me? And let's see, that will give me 10. And so, yeah, I really can't make division overflow, but it still works as well if you can think of a scenario, will it overflow? So you can use the ampersand operator if you're ever worrying about something overflowing. Obviously, maybe if your code is overflowing, maybe you do want to throw an error anyway, because that's usually a bad sign if you're overflowing, or if you expect that to happen, or have a good use for it, it may be something pretty cool to check it on your code, guys. Well, that's all I have for today, guys. Have the best day of your lives.